Hey team, Mandy here from Body Reset. Thursday, again, here we are, live training. I put a post up earlier in the week touching on gut health. Gut health topic we've talked about quite a lot. What I wanted to do today is I wanted to take a little bit of a step backwards and actually take you through some of the kind of inner workings of when we're talking about gut health, what does it actually mean? Because it's all well and good for us to kind of discuss gut health, but not really be able to put our finger on what it actually is and how we actually help it in the long term. So for today, I wanted to dive into one of my favorite topics and actually just take a little bit of a back step and view it on the kind of cascading process that digestion and gut health ultimately is. So you will have heard us saying, you'll have heard of this kind of saying out there that we aren't what we eat, but we are what we absorb. And what that is referring to is the fact that when we eat something, when we put something in our mouth, we chew it up and we swallow it, it's not actually in us. It's still outside of our body. And the reason for that is that your digestive lining, but even though it seems internal, is actually outside, is still outside of your body. Something has not actually been taken into your body until it's been absorbed through your skin or absorbed through that lining and is now into your bloodstream, able to move around internally and go and benefit your organs and your immune system and all of the different processes that we have going on in our body at any one time. So understanding gut health, that's actually a key component. It's not in us until it has been absorbed through our gut lining. So that gives us a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about when we're talking about the gut. It's not just the bacteria, but it's also all of the cells and all of the structure that makes up our internal organ, our digestive tract from our mouth down to the other end. So what I want to do, I want to break this down into the three components, give you a little bit of an idea of why each one of those is important. And then we'll talk about some things that we can do to support those that are very general, that benefit a lot of people at the end. And I actually have a resource which I'd like to give away that goes a little bit deeper on this whole kind of looking after the gut thing as well. Because as you know, there's no one pill that can really help the gut, and it's because our gut function is made up of so many different processes. So let's start at the top. The first part of the digestive process, is you'll see from my post, is mechanical digestion. So mechanical digestion is actually the physical breaking down process that all of the different components of the breaking down process that we use to digest our food. So it starts with chewing, mechanical action, and the movement of our tongue. It's also the smooth muscle contraction that moves food down our esophagus and then through the valves that go into our stomach. It's the contraction action that happens with our stomach as it squishes and squelches food, mixing it with stomach acid. And then the opening of the valves that allows that food to get into our small intestines and then move on down to our large intestines and then finally out at the other end. So there's actually there's more than just the chewing. Chewing's really important, and chewing actually starts the cascade of all of the processes required to digest food that come after that fact. So the first thing we need to be looking after when we're talking about gut health is the mechanical process, because if we're swallowing our food whole, our stomach does not have teeth. Very strong acid down there, but there's no teeth to do the breaking up of food. So chewing, that mechanical process, is really, really important. Not only that, it sends a messenger to our brain to alert our body to the fact that food is incoming and we need to start releasing the next component of digestion, which is chemical digestion. And then there's also that smooth muscle contraction piece. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because I think that's really important to understand as well, and it's how part of how our digestive process links into our psychological state. So if we are very stressed, if we're kind of in that flight-fight response, something that happens then is a lot of our resources and energy and our body's focus goes to our limbs, goes to our brain, and goes away from sending blood supply and sending nutrients and stuff to the smooth muscle that allows our digestive system to contract and move food through. So when we're eating in a stressed state or in a rushed state, etc., not only will we likely not chew our food as well, but that contraction of the small the smooth muscles that moves through our digestive system is going to be somewhat impaired as well. So this is going to have a flow-on effect to how we digest further down the track. So as I said, chewing sends the messenger to the brain, which tells our brain to release enzymes and all that, which is the chemical digestion process. So the third part after mechanical digestion is chemical digestion. Now, chemical digestion includes all the components of enzymes, stomach acid, etc., also hormones that help us break food down. So it starts with our saliva, which is full of enzymes that gets mixed with our food as we chew, that starts to break apart the food so that our body can access the nutrients that it contains, whether that's the glucose and the carbohydrates, or the vitamins or the minerals, etc., in our protein, or the amino acids in our protein. So there's our saliva, and then it goes down into our stomach, and our stomach is very, very acidic. It's incredibly acid down there, and stomach acid has a really important role to play in that it helps to break our food apart, but it's actually the release of that stomach acid into our small intestines which triggers the release of a lot of the digestive enzymes that are in the top part of our small intestines. And that's where we do the bulk of our absorbing. That's where a lot of the vitamins and minerals and all that are actually uptaken into the body, going from being external to the body to now being inside the body because they're absorbed into the bloodstream. So it's really, really important that we start the process from the top. The chewing stimulates the stomach acid stimulates the digestive enzymes. Digestive enzymes allow us to break that food apart so that we can get the goodness out of it, and so that it doesn't get down into our large intestines where a lot of our microbial bacteria and whatnot is housed. We're going to talk about that, where it can create issues. So the chemical component there is really, really important, and it can be upset by quite a lot of things. Nervous system dysregulation is a key one, because again, if we're stressed, our body's not prioritizing creating those enzymes, upregulating that stomach acid, etc., because it's focused on survival. So just stopping, taking a few breaths before you start chewing your food, before you start eating, can make a really big difference to how well you absorb the nutrients from that food. And another one that can be a big disruptor of the chemical part of digestion is nutrient deficiencies. So all of these enzymes, stomach acid, etc., that we make and we use to digest our food require building blocks for them to be made. Some key ones here are zinc, your B vitamins, and protein, your amino acids. So if you're low on these, it's likely that you don't have the building blocks to make sufficient enzymes, so you can't break down your food and get more of the building blocks to make the enzymes. So you can see how it becomes a little bit of a snowball that takes us in the wrong direction. So nutrient deficiencies are a really big one that can play a part there. And there's one more, meal composition. That's what I was going to talk about. It's pretty well known that a lot of the hormones that are released as we digest, so this is also part of the chemical digestive process, a lot of the hormones that help us to regulate food intake, satiety, how fast our stomach empties that food out and all that, are stimulated by the presence in the small intestines and in the stomach of fats and proteins, not so much by carbohydrates. So the composition of the meals we're eating has a big part to play as well on what enzymes are released. So protein, for example, was a really big stimulant of stomach acid production, which is important. And obviously we need stomach acid to break down the protein, but protein and fats in particular help to release a couple of other hormones. There's two in particular I can think of, peptide YY and cholecystokinin, which help us to regulate our hunger, help us to kind of not overeat, slows down our digestive process, keeping us feeling full for longer and whatnot. So again, composition of meals is really, really important. We don't get the same effect if we just have, say, a snack of popcorn or a snack of chips or some crackers or something as we get from eating a decent balanced meal. So mechanical, we have to really be paying attention to that first, because obviously the first thing we do when we put food in our mouth is chew it. So mechanical comes first. That stimulates part of the process to get the chemical part going. And then the chemical digestive process is part of what helps us to manage our microbial digestion component, which is part number 3. So microbial digestion is really the bit that probably most people think about when we're thinking about gut health, is all the good, bad, and ugly bacteria, viruses, yeast, fungi, etc., that we have living in our large intestines, predominantly our large intestines. Now, these can easily get thrown off balance, but depending on what we're eating, depending on what our exposures are, thinking of pesticides, herbicides, antibiotics, sanitizers, all those sorts of things. So it's really important that we're looking after these. The research is absolutely crystal clear now that the people that have the better health outcomes, able to maintain their weight really well, don't get sick as much, are the people that have a more diverse gut bacteria. So it's not even necessarily so much about what's in there, while we know there's pathogens that aren't good. It's less about what's actually in there as much as it is about the diversity of what's there and the ratio of that sort of good to not so good and what's going on. So what we're eating has a huge impact on this, because if we're eating a lot of refined foods, a lot of high sugar foods, and we're not getting in a lot of fiber and whatnot, which is the food for the good guys, then we're going to throw that balance more towards the bacteria that are perhaps not so beneficial in the long term. And where this fits in, following, and why I would put it sort of third after the chemical digestive process, is that the stomach acid, the enzymes, and all that control what ends up in our large intestines. So if we have low stomach acid and we have low digestive enzymes, meaning the food we're eating is getting down further through our digestive system before it's being broken apart, it means that larger food particles are getting to our gut where our bacteria can ferment it. What happens when you ferment something? You get gas. So a lot of things like bloating and those kind of lower digestive discomfort symptoms actually start further up, whether it's partially driven by the mechanical digestion issues not being right, or whether it's further driven by those chemical digestion things not being right. So when we're looking at microbial digestion, absolutely we want to be looking at what have been your exposures to things that could have damaged your microbial diversity. But also, what is your diet looking like? Are you feeding the good guys and all that? But secondary to that, we need to be looking at what's going on further up that's allowing things to get low down in the digestive system and create issues with that microbial profile. So what I really want to highlight here for you, and why, again, we come back to this point that there's no one thing no one magic pill that can really help the gut function, is because there's no one pill that can do all of those things, that can deal with the mechanical digestion, calm us down, break our food apart, etc., and then deal with the chemical component as well. We need to be addressing all of this. So we've talked a little bit about the mechanical digestion, the chemical digestion. Couple of things that we can really look at to start benefiting our microbial profile is obviously addressing those two first. But second to that is really looking at what we are allowing to get down into our lower bowels a lot of the time. Now, I want to give you two examples here. One, if we consume a whole lot of refined foods and sugars, we have a certain kind of limited capacity on how much of that can be absorbed in our small intestines and used. So some of that is going to end up down further and create some issues, preferentially feeding the not so good bacteria. But if we're eating and really focusing on a lot of variety of fiber, and this looks like a whole host of different root vegetables cooked in different ways, all your different greens, your nuts and your seeds and all those sorts of things, if you tolerate them, having that variety of fiber is variety of food for your gut bugs. Variety of food means a variety of different things flourish. And when we've got a variety of those good bacteria flourishing, it's kind of like sowing seeds in a garden. As the flowers get bigger and more resilient and stronger, there's less room for the weeds to be growing. And that's essentially what we want to be doing in our gut as well. We don't want to be going in and kind of just arbitrarily ripping everything out. Rather, we want to focus on how do we feed our gut to allow an environment to be created where we can where the good stuff can grow. And this doesn't happen quickly. So again, there's no magic pill. It actually takes time, and it's actually accumulation of a whole lot of little things over time that allow us to rebuild optimal gut function. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this, it's that if your gut has been unhappy for some time, you can start doing stuff that's going to help manage the symptoms, but we need to be consistent and persistent over a time period. And, you know, for as long as we want to have a good gut, I guess, of doing those things that support all three of those digestive processes, and it will snowball. Slowly, things will get better. Your gut will become more resilient. Your lining will become stronger. You'll absorb more nutrients from your food. And the flow-on effect is so cool because inflammation then calms down. Our immune response is better. Our mood improves. There's so many flow-on effects of really looking after that gut process. So I've been doing a lot of reading and stuff in this space, as you might be able to tell, a little bit excited here, in the last couple of weeks. And honestly, I'm really reinvigorated on just how important these simple things are. Eat more plants, you know, those vegetables and those fibers and stuff to feed those guys. Take 5 breaths before you sit down to eat so that you can just calm yourself down, activate your vagus nerve, and get yourself back into rest and digest mode. Keep your water away from your food so you're not diluting down those stomach acids and those digestive enzymes. And yeah, it really does come back to those basics. And honestly, those basics done consistently over time make a huge difference. So hopefully helpful, guys. I think, you know, this is something which I talk to a lot of people about, and often it's just like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense because we do know it, but maybe we haven't connected the dots in that specific way of mechanical, chemical, microbial, etc. And then it makes a whole lot of sense, and we can kind of understand our processes a little bit more. But hopefully useful for you guys. And I have a resource there that just kind of goes a little bit deeper on some 9 key action steps that you can take to be looking after your gut if you want to really dig into this a little bit more. So if you just comment gut down below, we can get that sent out to you. And enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Beautiful and sunny out there, so I hope it's sunny where you are as well. See you later.